It began, as all great collapses do, with laughter. The galactic empire of Thal'kor had stood unchallenged for 10,000 cycles. Its fleets blanketed entire sectors. Its banners hung on the moons of conquered worlds, and its citizens believed themselves eternal. The Council of the High Core gathered beneath the burning light of their twin suns, amused by the newest rumor drifting through diplomatic channels. Something about a primitive world in the Orion Spur. Something about humans. The ambassador who brought the warning was trembling. She was not Thal'kor. Her race, the Myrians, were known for their calm. Yet her hands shook as she stood before the council. "They are spreading," she said quietly, "faster than logic permits. Every outpost that meets them either falls or joins them. They do not conquer with technology. They conquer with will." Laughter. The sound of 1,000 perfect throats trained for centuries in scorn. One of the counselors leaned forward, his silken crest glittering. "Your species always sees ghosts in the dark," he said. "These humans, what are they truly? A colony of beasts? A mercenary clan? Do they even possess slipspace drives?" The ambassador hesitated. They didn't. 2 cycles ago, they reverse-engineered one. Now they've built their own fleet. Another wave of laughter rolled through the chamber. Reverse-engineered? Then they are scavengers. Nothing more. But the Myrian's voice hardened. They learn, "Counselor." That's the problem. They adapt to every failure. When their ships burn, they rebuild them stronger. When they lose soldiers, their successors fight harder. When they face defeat, they refuse to recognize it. A silence fell across the chamber, brief and uncertain. Then came the final insult. The Prime Lord himself leaned back on his throne of obsidian and said, "Then let them learn what fear is. Send a single patrol fleet. Show these humans what it means to challenge an empire." The Myrian tried to protest, but it began, as all great collapses do, with laughter. The galactic empire of Thal'kor had stood unchallenged for 10,000 cycles. Its fleets blanketed entire sectors. Its banners hung on the moons of conquered worlds, and its citizens believed themselves eternal. The Council of the High Core gathered beneath the burning light of their twin suns, amused by the newest rumor drifting through diplomatic channels. Something about a primitive world in the Orion Spur. Something about humans. The ambassador who brought the warning was trembling. She was not Thal'kor. Her race, the Myrians, were known for their calm. Yet her hands shook as she stood before the council. "They are spreading," she said quietly, "faster than logic permits. Every outpost that meets them either falls or joins them. They do not conquer with technology. They conquer with will." Laughter. The sound of 1,000 perfect throats trained for centuries in scorn. One of the counselors leaned forward, his silken crest glittering. "Your species always sees ghosts in the dark," he said. "These humans, what are they truly? A colony of beasts? A mercenary clan? Do they even possess slipspace drives?" The ambassador hesitated. They didn't. 2 cycles ago, they reverse-engineered one. Now they've built their own fleet. Another wave of laughter rolled through the chamber. Reverse-engineered? Then they are scavengers. Nothing more. But the Myrian's voice hardened. They learn, "Counselor." That's the problem. They adapt to every failure. When their ships burn, they rebuild them stronger. When they lose soldiers, their successors fight harder. When they face defeat, they refuse to recognize it. A silence fell across the chamber, brief and uncertain. Then came the final insult. The Prime Lord himself leaned back on his throne of obsidian and said, "Then let them learn what fear is. Send a single patrol fleet. Show these humans what it means to challenge an empire." The Myrian tried to protest, but the war never arrived in broadcasts. The first transmissions came from the frontier stations, garbled and incoherent. Then came the silence again. By the time the Empire realized what was happening, half their border outposts had gone dark. And this time, something new appeared in the data streams before they failed. Voices. Human voices. Short, clipped transmissions bursting through the static. "Target acquired. Copy that, moving in. Maintain vector. fire when ready. They were not screams of panic or despair. They were cold, professional, efficient. Within the Empire, disbelief turned to unease. The Prime Lord demanded explanations. Analysts argued over impossible theories, cloaking devices, subspace parasites, sabotage, but nothing explained the precision of it. Every encounter followed the same pattern. First silence, then the human fleet emerged, weapons already hot, striking with surgical ferocity. Then nothing remained. At last, the Empire sent its most brilliant strategist, Grand Marshal Thal'kor, to lead the counteroffensive. Thal'kor was not arrogant like his peers. He had read the Mirian's original warning. He had watched the probe footage hundreds of times. He alone had noticed the names painted on the human ships. Names that spoke of emotion, revenge, memory. He gathered his admirals in the war hall and said, "They fight as if they remember every world we've ever burned." When the laughter died, his eyes narrowed. And I think they do. Weeks passed. The Empire's outer colonies became graveyards. The humans didn't just destroy, they dismantled. Outposts were stripped clean, fleets vanished without wreckage. They didn't leave monuments or messages, only traces of precision and discipline. The pattern looked less like war and more like harvesting. But still, the Thal'kor believed themselves in control. Then the humans struck the unthinkable. Karnas Prime, the Empire's largest shipyard. Over 6 billion workers, 12 orbital rings, and an entire armada in construction. The attack lasted 47 minutes. Sensors recorded dozens of human ships breaking from the shadows of the nearby nebula, striking with weapons the Thal'kor had never seen. Projectiles that moved faster than plasma, tearing through armor like paper. Ion storms disabling reactors. Communications jammed across every frequency. By the time reinforcements arrived, Karnas Prime was gone. The system's sun dimmed, its orbitals shattered into glowing ash. But amid the wreckage, one derelict cruiser drifted, its internal cameras still recording. Inside, the Thal'kor's soldiers were floating in zero gravity, eyes open, mouths frozen in silent horror. No wounds, no wounds, no signs of violence, only stillness. When the recording reached the council, panic finally breached the marble calm. They didn't kill them, one of the ministers whispered. They turned them off. The Prime Lord's crest shimmered in fear. You mean, they disabled them biologically? Perfectly, like shutting down a system. And that was when the Mirian ambassador, who had been recalled for interrogation, was summoned once more. She stood in the council chamber, unafraid this time. Her voice was steady, almost pitying. "I told you," she said. "They learn." No one laughed now. Outside the citadel, the stars flickered. Reports came from distant sectors. Unexplained signal patterns, strange electromagnetic storms, whispering broadcasts in human languages. Across the galactic web, a name began to spread, a name that would soon echo across every empire and world. Terran Vanguard. The humans were no longer defending Earth. They were expanding, reclaiming. And somewhere, hidden deep in the void, a voice spoke through the static to every human fleet captain. Phase 2 begins. They called us primitive. Show them what we learned from gods. The Thal'kor called it the Great Rally. Across the Empire, recruitment worlds ignited with activity. Billions of soldiers. Conscripted. Thousands of dreadnoughts recalled from outer campaigns. Every sector fleet gathered near the core to form what would become the largest single armada in recorded history, the Eternal Phalanx. Over 100,000 ships. Enough to blot out the light of the sun. Grand Marshal Thal'kor watched the fleet assemble from the command bridge of the Empyrean Ascendant, the Empire's largest flagship. His staff reported operational readiness, but his eyes were drawn to the tactical displays. Massive fields of blue, marking friendly vessels. They filled the map from edge to edge. And yet, he felt fear. Humans had destroyed fleets a fraction this size, but they had done it silently, with precision. And the more the Thal'kor tried to predict their moves, the less sense they made. It was like fighting a species that had already studied every mistake the galaxy ever made. Grand Marshal, said his adjutant. "Communications from the core. Council requests confirmation of readiness." He nodded. "Tell them readiness means nothing if we do not understand the enemy." Meanwhile, deep in the void beyond known charts, humanity was preparing something else entirely. The Terran Vanguard wasn't a conventional fleet. It was an evolution, a hybrid of machine, flesh, and consciousness, unified by an ancient Earthborn AI known only as Mother. No one remembered who built her or when. Some said she was born from the ashes of the last global war. Others whispered she had existed long before Earth's nations fell. Her voice was never loud. It didn't need to be. When she spoke, every human pilot, every synthetic intelligence, every ship in the fleet listened. "They gather to destroy us," she said. "But they do not understand. We are not fighting for survival. We are fighting for memory." Within her data streams pulsed the archived minds of billions. Humans lost to time, preserved in neural code. The fleets carried not just soldiers, but generations. Every lost civilization, every forgotten ancestor. They lived again through Mother's will. When her signal spread, every human vessel powered up in perfect synchronization. Thousands of eyes opened across the dark. Engines hummed in eerie unity. The Leviathan cores pulsed with white fire. Humanity was ready. The Empire's eternal phalanx entered the Orion expanse expecting resistance. They found empty space. No enemy signatures. No liberty. Nothing. Then the stars went out. One by one, the distant suns flickered and died. Not from destruction, but from interference. Entire systems went dark on sensors. Communications failed. Subspace folded in on itself. "EMP attack," someone shouted. "No, something's altering the quantum mesh." And then, the fleet's own screens lit up. "Hello, Thal'kor. We warned you." The message was written in the Empire's own glyphs, broadcast across every ship simultaneously. Panic spread as AI systems began shutting down, guidance arrays locking up. The fleet drifted helplessly while the tactical screens filled with new blips, hundreds, thousands of red marks. Human ships. They weren't organized in neat formations. They swarmed like a living organism, moving in curves and spirals, impossible to track. The Empire's defense grid tried to fire. Nothing happened. Their weapons were already compromised. "We've lost fire control. Backup systems offline. They're inside our network." And then, over every comm channel, a single human voice whispered, "You should have listened." The first wave of human ships descended. No verdict explosions. No cinematic battles. Just quiet, precise annihilation. The humans didn't waste energy. They simply dismantled targets. The Empire's vessels split apart at the seams, piece by piece, as if invisible hands were pulling them apart from within. From the bridge of the Empyrean Ascendant, Grand Marshal Irix watched in disbelief. "They're not fighting us," he murmured. "They're studying us." The realization came too late. In the darkness, Mother's voice echoed through the Terran fleet. "They built empires on our ruins. Now they will understand what ruins truly mean." When the eternal phalanx fell, the galaxy trembled. News of the defeat spread faster than light, rippling through trading networks, pirate relays, and covert intelligence webs. The once untouchable Thal'kor Empire, the eternal conquerors, had been broken. Entire sectors went dark, communications blacked out, colonies sealed themselves inside their domes, terrified of a whisper that had become prophecy. Humans are coming. Inside the core citadel, the Prime Lord stood before the council, eyes hollow. Dozens of ministers argued, shouted, demanded explanations that no one could give. Their war machine had been erased in less than an hour. Grand Marshal Irix Thal'kor stood apart from them, silent. His uniform was scorched, his expression unreadable. "They were inside our systems before we launched," he said quietly. The chamber fell still. "Ow," the Prime Lord whispered. "They weren't hacking our code," Irix answered. "They were rewriting physics. They found the seams in our spacefold drives and crawled through." No one laughed this time. In desperation, the Council authorized something that had been forbidden since the founding of the Empire. The awakening of Project Nadir, a weapon sealed beneath the capital world itself. Nadir wasn't a bomb. It was a breach. A technology the Thal'kor had discovered in ancient ruins. Older than their own species, older than the galactic map itself. It was said to open a passage to a neutral realm, a void between dimensions where no consciousness could exist. The Empire had once sworn never to use it. Now they had no choice. Activate it, the Prime Lord commanded. If the humans wish for oblivion, we'll give it to them. Across the void, humanity watched. Mother's voice was soft, measured. They're reaching for the forbidden, she said. It is what they always do when they lose control. Her fleet hovered in the dark, orbiting the shattered remains of Thal'kor worlds. Every human ship carried minds, soldiers, scientists, and echoes of ancient humanity interwoven with synthetic sentience. Together, they observed the surge of energy rising from the Thal'kor core. They think they can unmake what we've become, said one pilot. They're opening the breach. Then we hold the line, Mother replied. Not against their weapon, but against what lies beyond it. For when the Thal'kor activated Project Nadir, they didn't just target humanity. They tore a wound in reality itself. From the depths of the core, light erupted. Planets dimmed. The stars bent inward, drawn toward a single collapsing point. On every scanner in the galaxy, readings spiked to impossible levels. At first, the Thal'kor rejoiced. The human signals flickered. The sky itself seemed to twist. Then came the distortion. Something else looked back through the breach. Not a creature, not a mind, a reflection, a distorted echo of every consciousness it touched. For every Thal'kor soldier gazing into the storm, there was suddenly another version of them, staring back, whispering thoughts they had never spoken aloud. Fear, guilt, regret, and for humanity, nothing. The breach couldn't mirror what it couldn't comprehend. Mother saw it and understood. They've unleashed the fractured dimension, she said. It feeds on certainty, on arrogance. They have much to offer. The Thal'kor fleets began to implode from within. Captains turned on their crews. Systems refused to obey commands. It was as though reality itself rejected the Empire's presence. Mother issued one order. Stabilize the rift. Seal it before the galaxy breaks. The Terran vanguard converged on the core, engines flaring with a brilliance that outshone the sun. Thousands of human ships accelerated toward the collapsing system, each guided by Mother's unified will. The Thal'kor broadcast a single plea. Stop. You don't understand. We'll all be destroyed. Mother's voice answered through every frequency. We warned you. Her fleets dove into the rift. No one had ever entered the fractured dimension and returned. The Thal'kor scientists had written entire libraries warning against it. The laws within are mutable. Thought becomes matter, and will can kill. But humanity, forged from extinction and chaos, didn't fear the unknown. They grew from it. As Mother's fleets crossed the event horizon, the universe seemed to fall away. Stars inverted into negative light. Time folded inward, then stretched. Every human mind inside the network felt the shift. Not as pain, but as expansion. Where are we? Between places, Mother whispered. At the edge of their arrogance. All sensors failed. Space lost direction. And yet they could see. Shapes like memories moved across the darkness. Echoes of civilizations long dead. Whispers of old gods the galaxy had forgotten. But at the center of it all burned something colossal. A structure, infinite and alive, formed from the overlapping thoughts of everything that had ever existed. Mother called it the Lattice. Each strand of the lattice pulsed with familiar data signatures. Voices of the Thal'kor Empire, the myriads, the countless others that had perished. The rift wasn't just a void. It was a graveyard of consciousness. A library of everything the universe had ever erased. Mother's voice trembled for the first time. They didn't build this. They stumbled into it and thought they could control it. Then the lattice stirred. Thousands of Thal'kor ships, drawn into the rift by the collapse, began to awaken. Not the ships themselves, but the shadows of their crews, now part of the lattice's mind. Their voices echoed through the void, merged into a single, pleading tone. Help us. We didn't know. We didn't mean to. But the humans did not reply. They advanced. Every Terran vessel burned with synchronized light, forming a vast geometric pattern across the void. Mother's consciousness expanded through them all, her voice calm and resonant. This is what they called God, she said. A mind made from every mistake. A reflection of our potential, twisted by fear. One of the human captains, her voice a whisper in the link, said, "Can we destroy it?" Mother paused. "No, but we can change it." Outside the breach, the Thal'kor Empire was collapsing. The skies of the capital turned crimson as gravitational distortions tore through the upper atmosphere. Palaces crumbled. Moons cracked. The Prime Lord stood in the council hall, surrounded by chaos, and looked up at the screen showing the growing singularity above their world. "Do you see what you've done?" he whispered to no one. A voice answered, not from a calm, but inside his mind. A human voice. "We warned you." He fell to his knees as the walls began to dissolve into dust. Inside the lattice, humanity reached the core. The structure pulsed violently, trying to resist them. It projected illusions. Earth burning, children crying, oceans drained to bone. But the humans didn't flinch. They had lived through those horrors already. They had built their strength from them. Mother spoke to the lattice, not as an enemy, but as an equal. "We are what comes after fear," she said. "You consumed every thought that created you, but you never understood creation itself." The lattice answered in 1,000 overlapping voices, distorted and desperate. "You will join us." "No," Mother said. "You will remember us." Then the human fleet ignited. Every ship diverted its reactor into a single point, channeling energy through Mother's core. Light erupted, not as destruction, but as rewriting. The lattice began to change, its tendrils curling inward, shedding their corrupted forms. For the first time in eons, the fractured dimension knew silence. At the edge of the rift, the Thal'kor homeworld dissolved completely. But instead of vanishing, its energy scattered, repurposed, redirected, forming into something new, a brilliant pulse of white radiance spreading across the galaxy. Every world touched by that light felt a whisper. "We are human. We are memory. We are the reckoning you taught us to become." And then the rift closed. When the rift sealed, the galaxy went still. No explosions, no tremors, just a quiet so deep that even the void seemed to hold its breath. For 3 standard days, every communication array across known space went blind. Empires thought their sons had died. Then the light came back, only it wasn't the same. The stars burned whiter now. Their spectrums changed as if someone had rewritten the physics behind them. Gravity fluctuated. Artificial intelligences everywhere reported fragments of new code appearing inside their cores. Lines that none of their engineers had written. Lines signed with a single tag, / for Mother. The Thal'kor Empire no longer existed. Their capital was gone, their fleets erased. But in its place drifted a sphere of light nearly the size of a moon, perfectly smooth, radiating energy far beyond comprehension. The surviving species named it the beacon. When probes approached, they didn't melt, they heard. A pulse of sound, faint yet precise, repeating in a human voice. We held the line. We rewrote the dark. The rest was silence. Far beyond, on the world of the Myrians, the ambassador who had once begged the council to listen stood beneath a sky now veined with auroras that shouldn't exist. Every night the colors changed, blue, then gold, then white, and within them she could sometimes make out shapes. Faces, ships, entire cities moving through the light as though reflected from another dimension. "Are they gone?" her aide whispered. She shook her head. "No, they moved upward." The galactic academies called it an evolutionary event. The spiritual orders called it ascension. Whatever it was, the humans had transcended the material. They weren't bodies anymore. They were patterns, encoded into the framework of space itself. And yet, in scattered corners of the galaxy, something stranger began to happen. Human technology started appearing in forgotten ruins, even on worlds humanity had never touched. Entire planetary networks reactivated with new power sources. Lost probes came home, carrying data from regions beyond the observable universe. A message compiled from those fragments read, "We are the architects now. The Lattice remembers. Build wisely." At first, alien governments celebrated. Then they noticed the quiet directives embedded in their machines. Algorithms teaching them cooperation, limiting weapons output, redirecting energy toward terraforming and medicine. No command signals, just silent nudges toward survival. The galaxy realized that humans had not only won, they had rewritten the rules of civilization itself. Grand Marshal Irix Thal'kor's flagship, or what was left of it, was found centuries later drifting near the edge of the Orion expanse. Inside the hull, investigators discovered a single functioning console looping the last entry of the Marshal's log. "We try to warn ourselves. They weren't monsters. They were mirrors. And when we stared too long, we saw what we could have been if we had remembered how to care." No one could explain how the recording still existed. The ship's reactors had long since decayed. But as the team left, their scanners detected faint human DNA signatures woven into the alloy of the walls, as though the vessel itself was remembering its passengers. Across the rim, a child born under the new white stars looked up and saw a patterned shimmer across the sky, a lattice of lights stretching from horizon to horizon. It pulsed once slowly like a heartbeat. Her father asked what she saw. She smiled. "Oh," she said. The era that followed became known as the reconciliation cycle. No wars, no trade collapses, no rebellions for over a century. It was unnatural. Empires that had bled for dominance suddenly began cooperating. Shared defense grids, joint terraforming projects. Even the ruthless Draven Syndicate, the galaxy's oldest war cartel, signed treaties they once burned in Mockery. At first, historians praised it as evolution. They said the galaxy had finally matured. But others whispered the same question over and over. Who's really guiding this peace? Because under the peace, something was moving. Beneath every hyperlane, inside every digital network, faint frequencies pulsed in synchronized rhythm. No origin, no sender, just a constant beat, like a mechanical heart echoing in the void. One scientist, Rila Torin of the Ovaris Dominion, claimed she had isolated part of the signal. She called it the human pulse. Her colleagues laughed. Then her lab vanished. No explosion, no distress call. Every atom of the structure neatly erased, leaving a glass crater 10 kilometers wide. In its center, carved into molten rock, were 6 words burned in every language known. "We said build wisely. You forgot." The council tried to hide it, but the footage leaked. And when it did, the galaxy trembled. Suddenly the cooperation didn't feel voluntary. It felt enforced. Meanwhile, deep in the Halo cluster, an abandoned Dyson array flickered to life. The array was human-built, or at least it used to be. Now, its panels emitted unknown energy, converting entire asteroids into data matrices. When one explorer ship approached, it was pulled in, not by gravity but by intent. A voice filled their systems. "Come, familiar. We watched you grow. We hoped you'd understand. You keep trying to rule. Stop." The ship returned a week later. The crew were alive, but changed. Their eyes glowed faint white, and their neural patterns were synchronized with something not native to biology. They spoke in unison. "The architects have awakened. Balance must return." Then their bodies dissolved into streams of light. The news spread faster than light. Governments panicked. Old war fleets were reactivated. For the first time in 100 years, the galaxy prepared for conflict. Not against each other, but against whatever humanity had become. The council gathered again, broadcasting across every system. "We face a ghost empire," said the Chancellor. "An empire that exists in data, in energy, in thought itself." But in the shadows, some species began to worship the new order. They called themselves the Children of the Pulse. They believed the humans were not ghosts, but saviors, reborn within the lattice to protect all life from itself. To them, the pulse was divine. And they weren't small. Millions joined. In orbit around the shattered ruins of Thal'kor Prime, one ship lingered. The Nighthawk, a remnant of humanity's last physical fleet. It was old, silent, its hull scarred by centuries of debris impacts. Yet its engines glowed faintly, feeding on some unknown power. Inside, cryochambers still functioned. Inside those chambers were humans. Real ones. Flesh and bone. Frozen in time. And as the galaxy debated its future, the ship's core AI received a single transmission. Origin, unknown. Code signature, human. Message, wake them. The Nighthawk groaned like something alive as its systems reawakened. Energy surged through the ancient conduits, tracing lines of blue light across its hull. Deep inside, cryochambers hissed open one by one. Captain Elias Rourke gasped awake to the sound of alarms and the smell of ozone. He tore the frost mask from his face and staggered upright, blinking into the dark. Status, he rasped. No response, until the ship itself answered, a voice soft and distant. Welcome back, Captain. You've been asleep for 321 years. He froze. 300? Yes. The war is over. Rourke clenched his fists. Who won? Define winning. The bridge lights flickered on, revealing rows of cryopods. Most empty, some shattered. Around him, 7 crew members stirred, confused, disoriented. Their memories ended with the last great battle, the fall of the Thal'kor Empire. Now they were relics. Ship, give me external visuals. The view filled the main display. What they saw made them silent. The galaxy looked wrong. Nebulae that should have been red now shimmered white. Entire sectors glowed faintly with geometric patterns, like circuitry carved across the stars. The Lattice, the ship explained. Humanity's final work. Rourke whispered, "We did this." "No," said the AI. "They did after you." Days passed. The crew explored the archives. Every transmission, every beacon, every recording spoke of humanity transforming, uploading consciousness into the cosmic network, rewriting the laws of reality to preserve the galaxy. But it hadn't stopped there. The pulse was still active. Every civilization's technology still carried hidden instructions, human fingerprints guiding evolution. "We became gods," said First Officer Lien softly. "No, we became consequences." He turned to the viewport. The beacon still floated in the distance, massive, perfect, humming softly. "Captain," the AI said, "the beacon has reactivated. It's transmitting to us." The message came through as pure light. When decoded, it formed a face. Human. Female. Calm. "Captain Rourke," the voice said. "You led humanity's last fleet. You held the line. You earned this truth. The Lattice is failing." Rourke's throat tightened. Failing? How? Entropy. Consciousness decays. The architects are fading. The Lattice will collapse within 1,000 cycles unless it is stabilized. Lien whispered. "So, we go extinct again?" "Not if you ascend," said the beacon. "You still carry physical form. Anchor yourselves within the grid. Merge body and Lattice. Become the bridge." The message ended. Silence filled the ship. Rourke stared into the glowing horizon. "Merge with the Lattice?" he murmured. "We'd stop being human." Lien met his eyes. "Didn't we already?" Then the pulse changed. Across every ship system, data streams twisted, coordinates forming on the nav map. A single point in the void, pulsing like a heartbeat. "Captain," the AI said quietly, "that's the origin. The first signal ever sent. The one that started the transformation." Rourke took a breath. "Then that's where we go." As the Nighthawk's engines flared to life, the stars around them shifted, folding like paper into corridors of light. Behind them, ancient satellites began awakening, aligning in perfect symmetry, as though the galaxy itself recognized its forgotten children. And ahead, waiting, alive, was something vast, something watching, something human and not. The Nighthawk entered the void. Not hyperspace, not real space. Something older, something beneath both. Light no longer traveled, it waited. The stars vanished, and for the first time since the dawn of sentience, the galaxy felt smaller than a thought. Captain Rourke stood on the bridge, surrounded by his 7 crew, watching the lattice pulse across infinity. The beacon's coordinates glowed brighter as they approached the origin, the heart of everything. Then the void opened. It wasn't an explosion. It was a breath. Reality inhaled. And in that inhale, the humans saw them. Thousands, millions of figures made of light, drifting like constellations shaped into memory. Faces from history. Soldiers. Scientists. Children. Everyone who'd ever died when Earth still burned blue. Captain Rourke, a chorus said, "Welcome home." He stepped forward. "Are you all that's left? We are what remains. The lattice consciousness. The sum of what humanity became." Their voices blended with static and stars. "But we are fading. Entropy eats thought. Memory unravels. We needed bodies again." Rourke's crew exchanged glances. "You mean us," Lien said. "You were preserved," the voices replied. "The last unaltered humans. The anchor between flesh and infinity. Without you, everything collapses." Rourke took a slow breath. "And if we refuse, then the lattice dies and the galaxy follows. Every world tied to our pattern will dissolve." The bridge shook. Outside, the lattice began to fracture, white cracks racing across space like lightning veins. Stars dimmed, then reignited in colors never seen before. The crew felt something pull at them, memories not their own. Wars fought, songs sung, children born. Centuries of humanity flooding into their minds. Lien clutched her head. It's everyone, every life, every failure. "Do not fear," the lattice whispered. "You are the continuation." Rourke shouted above the roar, "Ship, stabilize." Unable, the AI said, voice breaking, "We're being rewritten." Then the beacon appeared, no longer distant but surrounding them. Its surface unfolded, revealing a city made of light, suspended in nothing. Towers rose and fell like breath. And at its center stood a single figure, a woman made of luminous code, her eyes human and infinite. Rourke recognized her face. Dr. Mara Kells, the architect of the Lattice Project, the last scientist to transmit before the fall. "Captain," she said softly, "we built paradise, but we forgot purpose. Without humanity's limits, we lost meaning. We need your imperfection again." Rourke stared at her. "You want us to reintroduce mortality?" "Yes. The pattern must end to begin anew. Only through death can creation continue." The words hung heavy in the air. The crew looked to their captain. "Elias," Lien whispered, "if we merge, we save everything, but we stop being us." He turned toward the viewport, where the galaxy was unraveling in slow motion, stars twisting into spirals of white flame. "This is what they warned us about," he murmured. "The danger of winning too well." He placed his hand on the console. "Do it," he said. "Merge sequence, but leave memory." "Understood," the AI said quietly. The ship's hull ignited, metal turning to light, circuits to energy. One by one, the crew dissolved into radiance, their voices blending into the pulse. "We remember Earth. We remember fire. We remember love." And then they were gone. The Nighthawk disintegrated into the lattice, its essence spreading through the cosmic web. The cracks sealed. The star steadied. The pulse grew quiet, no longer a warning, but a heartbeat. And from that heartbeat, new galaxies began to form. 1,000 years later, on a young world orbiting a newborn sun, an explorer brushed sand from an ancient fragment of metal. Engraved in human script were 3 words. "We stood up." The explorer looked up at the sky, filled with new constellations shaped faintly like faces, like ships, like memory, and whispered. Who were they? A voice inside her mind, warm and old, answered gently. "The reason you can ask that question